Hello, fellow Rebel Capitalists. Hope you're well. We got a new jobs report just out this morning. Wanted to go over that with you guys ASAP here to keep you up to date. So let's go over to CNBC and check it out. And title, here's what the jobs are for August 2022 in one chart. I actually like these one chart things that they do. They're pretty straightforward, right to the point. I actually suffered through this video just because I was curious as to how they'll spin it. And this guy was actually pretty honest. But everyone else here, of course, Leisman, was just, and I didn't hear Rick Santelli talk, but everyone just, it's quite amazing how they can spin things to be positive. Just everything. Well, the unemployment rate went up. Well, that's actually really, really good because blah, 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 blah. It's like, and then they said, well, the labor force participation went increased. Well, that's really good because which it is. But my guess is when the labor force participation was decreasing, they weren't saying, oh, this is horrific. They were just kind of, oh, yeah. Oh, look, a squirrel. They're kind of sweeping that one under the rug. So it's just amazing the bias. And I don't know how they do that. I don't know if they tell these people prior to coming on air, hey, we need you to really spin this in a bullish way. Or maybe they just seek out the people that they know are going to maybe there's it's implied in the industry that, oh, this person's going to be super, super bullish. So let's have them on. So, they can just regurgitate what they've told other people and what we know they're going to say. I don't know. Anyway, let's get down here. U.S. added 315,000 payrolls in August. And by the way, I want to point out that I believe the household survey was actually more than this. I need to confirm that, but I believe the household, which I put more weight into, was actually higher than this. So actually, Josh, do you know that right off the top of your head? Guessing not here.
No, I was trying to find it. I do not know.
Yeah, why don't you, while I'm going through the rest of this video, why don't you pull that up? Because that would be useful. And whenever you find it, just chime back in.
What do you want me to see?
The household survey.
Okay.
So let's go down here. The economy saw growth in all key sectors led by a gain of 68,000 jobs, professional and business services. The market will like the broad-based gains in jobs. Yeah, the market. And what's interesting here, and I think the main takeaway from the jobs numbers, is the market could care less about the jobs. All the market cares about is the Fed. So you'll see the market, I believe, in the positive today. That's because they were worried that the jobs number would be too good. And that just shows you how distorted not only our economy, but the markets in general are right now. And people say, "Oh, should I should I short the stock market and all these things?" I'm like, "No, I wouldn't do that because it has no bearing whatsoever based on fundamentals. It is completely removed from the economy, completely. I mean, it's obviously removed from price to earnings multiples. Those are, I don't think they're at all-time highs, but they're extremely, extremely high when you look at an environment where the Fed has got interest rates at 2.25%. Why do they have them at 2.25% if the economy is just so incredibly strong? Right? The reason that rates aren't at 5 or 6%, which would be a historic norm, is because they know that would absolutely decimate the economy. So then you have to ask the question, well, why is the PE multiples so high? How can that justify a high PE multiple if, based on where the Fed has interest rates, the economy is extremely unhealthy? And if your argument is the economy is extremely healthy, well, then again, why do we have to keep interest rates so low? Why don't we normalize interest rates? So getting back to the jobs numbers here, professional business services, like they said, 68,000. We've got healthcare, retail, trade, leisure, hospitality. I think those slowed down quite a bit. So I think they go into that more extensively. So even though job growth was positive across the board, it's significantly slower in some areas, is what I was referring to. Leisure, hospitality added 31,000 in August after growing 95,000 in July. The sector is still 1.2 million short. See, here's another thing that the CNBC types never talk about is they talk about all this job growth, but yet in many sectors, we have fewer jobs than in 2019. Okay. So again, how is this an economy? Let's just compare it to 2019. How could you argue the economy is stronger now when in many sectors we have, in this just one sector, 1.2 million fewer jobs than in 2019, but yet somehow we have an incredible labor market? Like, really? In my mind, and I'm no trained economist, but in my mind, it would make sense that a strong labor market would employ more people than it did before in what you're comparing it to. So I don't know. Let's just use broad numbers just as an example. If the economy, 3 years ago, had 1 million jobs, and today it has 800,000, how can anyone in their right mind say that's a strong jobs market? And by the way, I would guess the population is higher now. And if you look at the amount of people aged 18 to call it 60, I'm sure that is a higher number than it was in 2019. So throw out the labor force participation, U6, U3, all this stuff. Now, let's just look at the number of people in the age group where most people are working. I mean, pretty darn simple. And do we have more people or less people? Okay, great. Now let's just say we have more people. Okay, do we have more jobs or less jobs? Okay, or even the same amount of jobs? Well, if we have more people in that age group and we have fewer jobs or even the same amount of jobs, I don't care what your number is. I don't care what U3 is. I don't care what the jobs report is. It's all just noise. The simple fact is fewer people as a percentage of the working age demographic are actually producing goods and services. Therefore, that's weakness. That is not strength. Maybe I'm not a trained economist, so I'm being overly simplistic. But I mean, look, and I've used this example before, but let's just say you had 350 million people in a country, and the labor force was only one person, and because of how you jimmy the statistics, and that one person had a job. Unemployment 0%. Oh my gosh, this labor market, the jobs market's on fire. Oh my goodness, look at this. The economy's got to be booming. Unemployment is at 0%. So if you had one person working out of 350 million, you think that would be a strong economy? Obviously, rhetorical question. But you see, that's the insanity within statistics. And why I think, is coming at this from a layman standpoint, you should just look at the population of working age adults. How many human beings? How many breathing bodies do we have between 18 and call it 60? Great. How many of those people as a percentage are working? Or how many people total are working? Is it less or more? If it's less, that's bad. If it's more, that's good. Obviously, there's some nuance there. And you can see right here as we speak, breaking. Dow jumps 300 points Friday after solid August jobs report. By the way, is in line with expectations. The reason why the Dow is jumping, most likely, is because there was concern within the marketplace that the jobs numbers would blow out expectations. So the jobs numbers would be, well, I'm using better in air quotes, would be a lot better than expectations. Therefore, a higher probability that the Fed continues to raise rates, or a higher probability that they increase rates more or become more hawkish than they already are. And this is why, most likely, the Dow is going up. So it's again, CNBC spin is they say, oh, well, the Dow's up because of a solid jobs number. No, it's not. The Dow's up because the jobs number isn't as good as they were worried about, oddly enough. And again, this is how distorted the stock market is. This is how distorted the whole financial economy is. And that somehow everything revolves around the Fed. Everything. The economy is, forget about it. Who cares about the economy? Just what's the Fed going to do with interest rates? That's all they care about. To the point where good news is bad news. We're still in that mode. Good news is bad news. And bad news is fantastic news. I mean, I'll bet you that if this jobs report would have come out a horrible number, then the stock market would be up by even more, because that would increase the probability that the Fed takes a little more dovish stance. I mean, that's the bizarro upside down world that we live in right now. And for all you young people, excuse me, sorry about that, guys. For all you young people watching, you may see this and think this is normal. It's not. It's not. I mean, I wasn't in the markets or anything like that in the 80s or 90s. I didn't even barely know what it was. But no, back then, I can almost guarantee you, and I know it's from watching videos of Thomas Sowell and Milton Friedman and Jim Rogers and whatnot. The stock market was a reflection of the economy. So the better the economy did, usually the stock market would do better. This is something new, where the worse the economy is doing, the better the stock market is doing, because the more dovish the Fed will be. It's so the whole entire. I mean, just for a moment, think about that. You say, "Well, George, that makes sense. It's all about the Fed." No, but let's think about this here. The entirety of the stock market, meaning the majority of the U.S. economy, and most people kind of, oh, well, you're being hyperbolic. Well, no, I'm not. Let's just say the stock market went down by 50% and stayed there. What do you think would happen in the U.S. economy? Think it would boom? No, the economy would get crushed. So there's a huge dependence the economy has on the stock market. And the stock market has this dependence on the Federal Reserve. But let's dissect that a little further. What does the Fed do? They print bank reserves. That's it. You say, well, they've got IOER. Okay, great. Well, how do they pay the IOER? Just bank reserves. And let's take it a step further. What is a bank reserve? It's simply just an entry into a computer, just like the one I'm talking in right now, just like this webcam, just like this, whatever it is, MacBook Pro. It's just a computer. It's just a computer entry. It's a ledger entry. That's all it is. So when they pay IOER or IOR, or when they do quantitative easing, when they become more dovish and the stock market just booms higher, that's because there's a nerdy guy with glasses, probably like the ones I'm wearing, but probably not with a hat that says "End the Fed," just going over to a computer and just typing in, typing in a zero, typing in or whatever it is, an extra zero in an account, or some extra numbers into his computer. So let's zoom out. And what this means is that our entire economy is predicated or dependent on someone just typing numbers into an electronic ledger. Does that give you a lot of security? I mean, does that make you feel as though, well, my goodness gracious, I can sleep well at night? Or would you prefer that you have an economy that is dependent on the production of goods and services? And if the economy is doing well, that means we're producing a lot of stuff. Which economy would you rather have? One that was dependent and running on all 8 cylinders, producing stuff that real human beings need and use daily, and that is the definition of wealth? Or an economy that is completely dependent on one thing, and it's a nerdy guy with glasses at the Fed typing in numbers to an electronic ledger? Because that's really what it boils down to when you think about it. And I think that we just kind of gloss over that when we hear, oh, well, yeah, well, what's the Fed going to do? Well, what's the Fed going to do? You mean, what is the nerdy little guy with glasses going to type into his computer? That's all we're talking about here. And by the way, what does that little number even mean? What does it do? It just adds another bank reserve to the balance sheet of JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs. How does that do anything? How is that? How does that have to do with the economy? Or what does that have to do with the economy? Nothing. Nothing. How does that translate into goods and services? It doesn't. It does just as much as me going over to my iPhone, and I've got a 0 on my iPhone. Let's just type in 100,000. Oh my gosh, the economy is going to boom. The economy is going to it's on fire. Why? Well, because George just typed in 100,000 into his iPhone calculator. And that's what we're talking about here. That's exactly what we're talking about. What I just did in my iPhone. That's all that happens. And somehow we're supposed to hang and put our complete confidence in just numbers, electronic digits being typed into a computer. And somehow that's going to save us from economic ruin. Somehow our economy is going to boom as a result of that. Tell me how that makes sense to anyone. A third grader would know that's nonsense. This stuff just drives me crazy because it's just common sense here. It's just all we're talking about. And it's like we're living in this world where people completely ignore common sense. Not people, the experts. It's like it's the emperor is wearing no clothes. That's exactly what this is. And just everyone's afraid to say it because they think that everyone else will call them stupid. And it just takes the kid to just look up and say, "What? The dude's not wearing any clothes." This is the world that we are living in right now. It's just the kid hasn't said anything yet. And we are saying it on YouTube, but no one's listening to us, or at least no one's, or well, a lot of people listen to me, relatively speaking, but I guess the market doesn't care what George Gammon says. That's for sure. Just frustrating. Just really, really frustrating because it's just so commonsensical. We just need that kid, whomever that is, to stand up and just state the obvious. Anyway, that's what's going on with the jobs numbers. Oh, got sidetracked there. And then we got Biden calling half the United States fascists, and just we'll do that another story. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. As always, make sure that you're standing up for freedom, liberty, free market capitalism, and common sense, for heaven's sakes. All right, we'll see you in the next video.